Got it? Okay. So, I don't know if want to discuss, I don't know if you guys know about this, I imagine you know, about the famous airline tickets from El Al.
Oh, yeah.
So, what happened was, I think it was 3 hours last week, and there was a glitch on the computers, and El Al charged $350 from New York to so instead of $1,350, the 1,000. So for 3 hours it was on, and one of my son-in-laws got 2 tickets, and someone told.
That bought 23 tickets.
12 tickets. Someone, my son-in-law knows the family, bought 12 tickets, making a wedding in Etzisol to quickly make 12 tickets. So the question is if it's a glitch in the computer, even though sort of the government is saying that you have to uphold it, in Halacha, are you allowed to use the ticket? El Al is run by it's a Jewish company. It's not anymore the government. Even the government would be a big problem. But the fact is, it's a private company, and most of the people are Jews who own shares in the company. I think it's mostly. It's not anymore government. Very small percent, right? I think
it used to be a government.
now it's totally private. I think it's totally private.
So you're saying there's Gezel?
So, let me give you a mosh. What happens?
Do I need to leave now?
What?
If I bought tickets, do I need to leave now? I should turn it off.
No, we find out. So the question is, what happens if I am? The question, first of all, if El Al.
You know, there's a guy in our shul whose company does marketing for El Al. He said they lost about $4 million on the.
But I heard today that it was on purpose also. They did this on purpose.
No.
They said if you went to the higher ups, they did this
You
on
don't
purpose.
lose $4 million on purpose.
5 million. I was told 5 million.
They go, that's $4 million
5 million.
on purpose.
No. This was a gig. You know, people know the industry told.
There's a lot of publicity.
No, but it was really a glitch. It was they said themselves right away it was a glitch, and that's why they closed it after 3 hours when they realized it.
You can get out of it, but it makes security so hard, you won't be able to get your flight. There's everybody's going to miss their flight.
It's not in the Persian community they came up with this, that they really did it on purpose.
So anyway, so the question is like this: if a guy says to you, let's start this way. If I hire someone to sell suits for me, or plumbing, and he put out, instead of $50 an item, it's supposed to be $500 an item, he put 10 on the item. If a Yid buys it, let's say a Jew buys it, I buy the item, or someone else buys the item, now the middleman is going to lose money, or the company, you can't have him lose money. It was the question starts this way. The real question, how do we look at this? First, people thought, let me explain what happened. There was a glitch. I looked it up on the computer, and the government has a rule that if you advertise, even though it's a mistake, you have to uphold it, because it causes chaos. American government. And I don't know American government. I was told that they have a rule across all the airlines together, because otherwise it's going to be a disaster.
How that rule is actually held up, because they had a problem with China, actually, where first class tickets were going for $30, and they basically said, sorry, here's your $30 back.
Yeah,
It was American based that booked the tickets for British Airlines.
that's a cash. You have to ask the China.
Could have returned the money and said, sorry,
I was told. I mean, everybody I read on the internet. I went and I read.
They did that. They were scared they would be sued or something like that because they would have been in violation of that.
So the bottom line is that I was told it's not El Al is going to lose. I read on the internet, it is the middle person who's losing, because El Al does not sell directly tickets. They have agents. You could be an agent. So the agents who are selling it, my son-in-law bought it from Expedia, bought 2 tickets, and Expedia is going to have to take the loss. Very simple. And other people. He bought from Expedia. Yeah, whatever it is. whoever the go-between was.
Yeah.
But let's say the go-between is a Yiddish person. And let's say, Allah is a Yiddish person. So, first I thought, when first my son-in-law calls me up and tells me, guys, what? I just bought 2 tickets, and so I'm happy. So I was thinking for a moment, and he says, why do you think they're going to have to honor it? So he says, because if that's the law, that if you made a mistake, if you want to be selling tickets, that means in order to sell tickets, you have to follow the rules and regulations of the government. This is part of the rules and regulations. So the first moment I thought, maybe this goes into the sugya of an asmachta. You know what asmachta means? They say, I agree to the government that if I make a mistake, I will uphold the mistake, the $300, because I want to sell tickets, because I think it never is going to happen. We always think mistakes never happen. Only happens to someone else. Car accidents only happen to someone else, and people I don't make mistakes. That's what the nature of a person is. So maybe it goes into the sugya of a smachta. But the truth is, it doesn't go into the sugya of smachta. Because a smachta means, first of all, something that is not common at all. Something that, and second, the smachta means it's like a bet. It's never going to happen, so that's why I'm doing something that is good for both of us. For you it's good, and for me it's good, for the industry it's good, and the government regulates it. That doesn't go into the sugya smachta. The reason the government wants this to be upheld, to flow of tickets, the flow, they have a reason. So it doesn't go in the question of smachta. Then it goes into the question if it's a goy, we have a klal dina de mochisadina. You know what that means? The goyim doesn't make a difference. They made the goyim have to follow their own rules. The rules is that if they said it's cost $300, they have to follow it through. That's dina mochisadina. By Yid, you don't say dina mochisadina. This is a mistake that so many people make. The reason you don't say dina mochisadina by Yid, is because we have a Torah. Dina, I mentioned this more than once. Dina the machisa dina only helps on what's his name, to say it's a kinyan. L'moshel, that the fact is that they say that if you click on the internet and you say you want to buy it, you bought the item, it became a law. That will work in Torah. So that means if I buy from one Jew to another Jew an item, and I clicked, and that is a contract, dina namachisa dina, the Torah would uphold such a contract, because it facilitates kinyonim. Because that's how it transactions. I explained this a long time ago. Sif explains that when dina machisa dina just makes the kinyan and makes easy things that you do say. But dina machisa cannot say, if you made a mistake, you put up the Torah says there's all rules. You made a mistake. If it's a sixth, more than a sixth, make it all the laws regarding when a seller or buyer makes a mistake when the sale is not valid, they have their rules, we follow the Torah rules. And the Torah says, if a guy made a mistake, it's a mistake. If it's clear a mistake, so it's not a valid transaction. So if the airline would not lose money, see, the question is like this. If the airline is not going to make so much money, that means by me using the ticket, the airline is not going to make so much money. But then I have a loss. So I am only goyim, not making profit. Remember we spoke about a gruma. Remember we spoke a few times. A gruma is not a problem where your guy is going to lose profit. Let's say I am goyim him, causing him, he wanted to make profit $100, and with what I did, he's only to make profit $80. But if the problem is that they're losing, the way they explain, it costs a lot more to take a person from on a jet for $300, $1,300. It's a loss. So if it's a loss, so we don't follow dina and machisa dina. If it's a loss, then we have to know that the Shulchan Aruch. So if Ella will lose on the deal, then we have to very clearly say can't use the ticket. But now I was told it's not Ella who's going to lose on the deal, it's the agent in middle who are not Jewish even, not run by Jewish companies.
What if there's an insurance policy in place where even the middle guy doesn't end up losing, but I mean, it ends up being
Someone told me they probably have insurance for this. Someone told me. Well, again,
Premiums would go up.
yeah. So
Then it would be impossible to figure out what portion of that premium was from your.
well.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. But if there's a loss, I'm just saying, if it's a loss for a Jewish person, then it's a question.
The LL said that they were going to honor all the tickets, but now what you're telling us is that LL isn't losing a dime. So by honoring the tickets, they look like heroes, but they're just making their money anyway.
They're
Yes.
forcing the seller to honor the tickets.
Yeah, so they're honoring, they're forcing the seller to honor tickets.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't
this
know
is.
if that's actually the case. That's what it sounds like.
According to Rabbi,
It's what I was told. I read, and I don't. I asked people who know the industry. Told me that's what it's turning out to be. That they are forced. They are. It's not they who sold it. It was the agents who are selling it, and they're forcing the agents.
I read that LL said that themselves. Like as the sale was going on, I think it was a 2.5-hour sale, maybe from 11 to like 1:30. In the process, somebody was, I'm not sure if you're familiar with tweeting, but updating what's going on with Circa from LL, saying this is a massive mistake, and we don't know what's going to happen. During the process, then they were saying it's a mistake, and then afterwards they said we'll honor the mistake. Well, as it was going on, then they said somebody else was going to pay for it, the middle company, whatever. Like they were money about it.
Yeah.
I have a different question in regards to, don't we have enough price? So Marshall, let's say you sell me $1 million house, we're about to sign a contract, it says $10. Now I know for certain that it's a mistake. Isn't it my price to say, Rabbi Tauber, you're selling me $1 million house for $10?
For Yid, yes.
What this is, who was saying? So with LL,
That's his
before
whole
buying
question.
it, no, I'm saying before buying it, how can you even buy it? You went too far.
I don't know.
wait, you
First-
said anybody can enter a contract, whatever stupid contract.
Yeah, if you want to make a silly contract,
Right, but isn't that our price to bring up the top, to bring it up, though, that's true.
Yeah.
You could say, yes, that's right.
well, if the people at I asked my son-in-law. He really thought it was a sale. He didn't
It
think.
wasn't like $5, it was $200, it made sense it was a sale.
Everyone knew it was a mistake.
Well, not
Because
afterwards.
it was tweeted as a mistake. I got the same tweet.
Oh, well, no. Not everyone gets tweet.
Yeah, but
It doesn't.
But just to clarify, if LL is losing the money, it seems like you're saying that really.
Can't use
you
a
have to-
ticket.
You have to return the ticket.
Yes, you can use a ticket.
And if there's a middleman that's not a Jewish company, then, and they're losing the money,
Then it's okay.
then it's okay.
1 second, how do you?
And what if it's the burden is shared by the two companies?
So again, if it's a Jewish company loses money, you can't use the ticket.
So what do you do with the ticket? They won't accept it back.
Oh, they will. Oh, yes, they will.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yes, they will.
How do you define a Jewish company?
Well, El Al is owned by Jews right now.
And when you say owner, if it's like commercial, if they're shared.
Of course, it's shares. It's a bunch of.
It has to be owned.
And most of the shares, I asked someone who in the industry told me most of I think he told me a small percent of the government though, is wealthy Jews who own the El Al.
So go with the logic that you brought up in the previous year, which is very not Chabad logic. If they're not from Yidden,
Not from Yidden, it depends if you're Tinnik Shenish, but not. You're not allowed to steal from you're not allowed to steal even from a guy who became fry. You're not allowed to steal money. There's other luchas. It is theft. I mean, if it's a loss of money and the Torah says that the sale is not a sale, then it's theft.
What do you do with a situation where you enter a contract which is ridiculous and you choose to enter it?
That I could, but if I was a mistake, then it's not a contract.
If I intended to go into that.
I was going to write $1,300, but mistake you wrote. That's what happened. It was printed $300 instead of $1,300. That's all what it was.
doesn't make a difference if they're from or not.
No, that doesn't make it difference.
But Rabbi, I'm in the travel business for a dozen years, and airlines actually file with the government what they call a tariff, which is all the rates that they could possibly charge. So when today you see a ticket at $600 and tomorrow the same ticket is $850, all of those rates are filed. With LL, I mean, I just know this from personal experience. I had a deal with LL with their prior manager here in LA where they had a filed rate that was a special rate that literally was $300, I think it was $350. And my deal with them is I could buy one ticket a year as a travel professional. I could buy one ticket a year at $350. It's probably a loss to them, but they did it as a promotion.
That's
because
okay.
I was a travel person.
That's perfectly okay.
So potentially what happened, let's say that $350 deal had a code of Z. So someone made Z available to the general public.
Yeah, so someone made a mistake.
But
It's a mistake.
It's like the guy that's selling the
It's a
suits.
mistake.
One second.
He puts it for $50 instead of
But you
$500.
can't sell it for that, unless literally it's a typo of, of the tariff itself in the
They
computer.
didn't consent. They didn't consent.
It wasn't that it was clear a mistake. I
But
mean,
here,
no.
but here it changed that because they said, okay, we'll accept the mistake.
But I was told the reason they accept the mistake, they're not losing money on it. But if they would be losing
You
money,
can change the tickets, they let you fly direct now, you don't have to do the stop over here.
Right,
For an extra $75, you can go direct.
I'm saying
They're
if
not losing money on it.
No, they're losing money on it, but they said they're accepting it.
that
People in the industry say the reason why they accept it is the DOT was fined them $27,000 a ticket.
I was told, I don't know. I don't know. But if Ella loses money on it, then you can't use the ticket. But I was told they're not losing. Someone explained the industry because it's the agents who are going to be losing the money, the middleman.
All right, then you say stealing from a goy is still an issue.
No, I'm allowed to steal from a goy, but I'm not stealing from a goy. The Dina Lamachisa Dina says if you make such a mistake, you have to. We have rules when it's a mekechtuas, when it's not a mekechtuas. They say the rule is tough. Anyone who makes a mistake, it's too bad you made a
If
mistake.
they didn't say this,
Then of course you're not allowed to use the ticket. But I'm saying the reason it is valid for goy because they have the rules and regulations says that it is a sale. See, we have a halacha when we sell something. If I undercharge you by mistake, there's a certain amount, there's a sixth or all different halachas. They have different rules and regulations all the time.
Now, does the fact that they're gonna honor it for the general public, okay, and then to take it further, they're also not coming out and saying, hey, we're losing X amount on each ticket. So, without, you know what I mean, like, there's no claimant here, because LL is not coming and saying, oh, you really have, I made a mistake, I sold the suit for $50, you know what I mean? They're saying there was a mistake made, but they're not saying that we lost X amount on the ticket or not. People in the industry, they say, they estimate. You understand what I'm saying? So how can you say, hey, maybe they're breaking even on it, in which case I can fly with it?
Well, I'm just saying, if it's true, but the people in the industry told me, the guy,
Right.
you could check this on the internet. People tell me in the industry who it is cost them a lot more than $300. Does.
you have to be losing money, or is it just like?
Yeah, that's what I explained before. Us to be losing money. If they don't make so much profit, then it's a whole different
You
sugya.
figure out what the cost and just write them a check for the balance, send it in, and take your.
Yeah, theoretically you could do that.
Who's the price on?
No, but that's a machlokes. That's a huge. That I didn't want to go into it. That's a separate, huge machlokes in Choshen Mishpat. Hard to look at it. But the legabe.
Instead of losing that altogether, bring them up to par, and then.
Maybe it
fly
costs
the
them
ticket.
$700 to send you there, so send, write them a ticket for $200 or whatever you want, right? It's still a great deal for you.
All right. So anyone bought tickets? You bought tickets there? No. Okay.
Many people thought about buying tickets.
Oh, my
Not that
son.
many people actually watched.
My son was sitting next to someone, a guy co-worked to have someone tweeted him, and he just went down and Kippur and bought 2 tickets, and it went right through. I had a guest, Shabbos told me that she was told about it, and she tried and wouldn't go through. It was ended 2.5 hours. Just it was. Okay, we're up to Rabbi Sai. We're up to Siman Shin Lamed Gimel. In the middle of Sif Hay. We're talking about over here, a guy quits his job, and by quitting his job, you have a great loss. Shin Lamed Gimel, Sif Hay. So, you have it? Yeah? So, Mechaber says, when is all this says, there's not a loss. Then we had all the halachas that allow guys allowed to quit. If you hire a worker, a day laborer, and he decides to quit the job, it's too difficult, he doesn't like it, it's boring, he's annoyed, he quits, you have to pay him whatever he worked, but that's if it's not that as long as it's not a loss. But if his quitting is a loss to you, you have pishtim that you got to take out of the mishra. Remember, I started explaining this. You hired musicians for levaya or for a wedding, and a wedding without music is a schwache wedding. You know what I mean? The main happiness of a wedding is the music. He says, all this is called the dover ovid. So the Mechaber says in such a case, he's not allowed to quit. And if he does, now I remember I explained, what does it mean that he's not allowed to quit? There are somebody showing him says the Bezdin could force him to do the job. We don't have a Bezdin nowadays to do that. The Bezdin could beat him up and tell him go back to do the job.
No offense, but a musician who doesn't want to play isn't going to be a very good musician.
Well, that's part of it. If he wants to, see, we're talking about if he's Elch. If he's an Elch person, wants to do the right thing, you're not allowed to quit. There's no excuse, and you got to do the work. If you can't force anyone to do anything. But the Halacha says you have no right to do it. You must do it. Now, if he's not going to do what are you going to do? You can't do anything, but you must do it.
we're not slaves anymore. We quit and have one.
That's when it's not a dover ovid. When it's a dover ovid, it's a loss of someone else. You hired and he relied on your music. He can't find musicians now.
What's never out of it again?
A loss. A wedding without music is a terrible loss.
Yeah, but we said didn't we use that term before, between the other laws, but specifically why they use never out of it?
Like, why does loss mean specifically money?
Well, yeah. Well, no, this is not money. The wedding will be without music. That's what I'm trying to explain.
And a big bill is a lost object. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It usually refers to a physical object, something tangible.
No, you see not. You see over here, not having music at a wedding is not a tangible thing. It's just the wedding is not going to be a nice wedding.
Here's a scenario. Let's say a school is looking for a teacher, and they know that there's like a good teacher that teaches at the other school. But the school that's looking for the teacher, they can afford to pay a little more. Are they allowed to go and offer that other teacher a job to come over? And can the other school say, hey, you took my teacher, a couple weeks before school, and now we have to go hire someone that's not as qualified, because all the good teachers already have jobs, right? So, if one school poaches the other school's teacher, is that considered like a loss to say, hey,
But that's a whole different sugya. We'll learn hopefully later. If I'm allowed to steal a worker from you, I mean, that's the question. I know you have a great worker, and I want to take him, and are you allowed to do it? And Pashtus is a owner. It's a whole sugya called Unibahapach Bacharur. It's a long sugya. Sometimes you're allowed to, but on the Torah it says you're allowed to. The Torah, you want competition. So if he's a good rabbi, we want competition. So they do it. Schools did it till the Board of Education got involved, and they give money to the schools, and they don't allow them to do it. Schools would take a teacher from one place to another place, pay him a better wages, and take him.
But is there something about, let's just say you're allowed to do it normally, but if it's a last minute thing, where like the music or the flats or whatever that's wet, right? You're causing loss. You take a teacher right before.
We spoke about something. That is a whole separate issue. If that happens, then what's his name? He can't quit because it's a dover ovid for the school. Just like this, you can't fire a worker. He cannot leave the school because it's a dover ovid. The school doesn't have anyone to hire now.
Here's another guy. This guy's sitting around. He's looking for a job actually.
But if he's a good teacher, then you're right. But if he's not a good teacher, sometimes you get teachers because you have no choice.
Right.
You get a young shliach to teach and never taught in his life, and turns out a disaster. No, that's not a that's a dover ovid.
The other of it does not have to be something tangible.
Right. The music is not tangible.
And loss of time also?
No, a loss of object or a wedding without music. Loss of time is it will wait.
Yeah, but like for example, we said with the lawyer, if you book time with the lawyer or with the therapist, you book time with the therapist, and you don't show up,
Yeah, that's a loss. That's another halacha. That's a whole different halacha. That we learned it a few weeks ago. That's called hagruma. That means by you, I gave the therapist time that I'm going to come, and you just didn't show up, and the therapist could have had that slot for someone else, or the dentist could have the slot for something else. So you make them a loss of money. So that's a loss. If he would have had a slot with someone else. Here we're talking about a person is allowed to quit a job. The Torah says, I don't want you to be slaves, so you're allowed to quit the job. But if it's a loss for you, I'm not allowed to quit the job. I have to, like he just says, musician is going to play. But that's the halacha is, you have to finish the job. If it's a dover of it. Now, let me tell you, there's a big famous question in the Poskim. What happens if you, the hired, did not realize it's a dover of it? Let me tell you what happened. It happened, there was a guy who hired a van to take his family to a wedding, to his own child's wedding. The driver of the van didn't realize that these are the brothers and sisters of the chasana. And he came very late. I'm coming. And it costed them money because they had the photographer at the wedding hall, and they came late, the driver, and they didn't want to pay him. At the end of the trip, we're going to go to didnt. You came late, we're not paying you. So there's a question. He had no idea that this is a dover of it. The question, if you don't know it's a dover of it, these halachas apply to. See, if you're hired, you're the musician, and there's a wedding, and you call it off the last minute, he's not going to find musicians. It's very difficult the last minute to find musicians. A taxi driver, you could always find another taxi to take you.
Why
But
would not knowing make a difference though?
what did you say?
Why would the fact that he didn't know he was causing damage make a difference?
Because what makes you pay? What are you obligated to pay and do the job? And we'll see later if it's a dover over, he could trick you and he could take advantage of you. Because when you took the job, you said, I'm going to do the job for you. I'm not going to cause you loss. But if I had no idea, so I never took a promise of that obligation. If I had no idea you're the mechutin, or you're the one who has to arrive to the wedding in time, so I figured I could be late. Big deal, I'm late.
Why would you think that?
But
Why
it's not.
Why do you need to be late? The whole job is to be on time.
No. People are not always accurate in time. It's not the worst thing you're late. It's not the worst thing. But if he was late because they were waiting, they had to pay the photographer extra money, he had no idea. So that's a big question in the Poskim. Many Poskim hold that has to be I'm doing the job, and it's going to be over if I back out. But if I have it's not a over. I have no idea. Then we don't see about over.
But don't you see the fact is you did cause me a loss. I don't care what you do.
But
So you didn't know.
why do I
Cause
pay?
a loss.
Why do I pay you if there's a loss? Why do I get punished? And we later see all the halachas when there's a loss. Because when I took the job, I took it with that condition, knowing if this is a job that if I don't finish the job, it's a loss. So I made a kinyan that I obligated myself to pay the loss if there's a loss of the job. But if I had no idea, the person would say, I thought it's a regular driver, whatever the thing. So it doesn't, many places hold it doesn't apply. It's asked, you have to know music. That this shul has to be painted before Rosh Hashanah. You can't have it half done and quit, and he's not going to have anyone. That's it over. You come into shul half painted. A guy's cutting someone's hair and middle he quits. You know what I mean?
Some people like that.
Okay, but even if you say he didn't know, you would still be able to at least pay him less than the full amount.
Yeah, but we were to see, but there's a whole halachas we're going to soon see. But I'm allowed to lie to him and say to him, you know what? I'm going to pay you extra $20 just finish the job, and tell him afterwards go fly a kite. So it has to be something that he was ahead of time.
Why can't you lie?
Why can you lie? Because
Why can you lie?
why not? What is the problem? It doesn't apply when it's a dover of it. When it's a loss of money, I'm allowed to lie to the guy. The guy quits on me and is causing me a loss. I'm allowed to lie. See, we're not here. I explained this once. You see, I don't like to talk about it, but there is really no aveda of lying. The only time aveda of lying is when I fool you and I cheat money out of you. If I tell you there was an accident yesterday and I was there, there are people who like to, I was there and I saw the ambulance coming and I saw the guy flying, and he was sleeping in bed, so that's a great, as we say, But there's no, it's a terrible midaru. It's a terrible midaru. But if my story is going to get money out of you, how you say in English, you spin tail a story, how do you say? And I'm going to get money out of you, that is an aveda lie. Here, you're not allowed to quit. So I'm allowed to lie to you to stay the job.
How about manipulating them in a way like salespeople all the time?
They don't manipulate. There's no such a thing.
Deceiving them with
If you're lying to them, it's something else. But if you're very...
well, yeah, this is just
And a lie, that you lie about an object. You can't lie about an object. I'm selling you a car and telling you the car is great and is going to save gas, and it's not true. That's not. But if he's a good schmoozer and knows how to sell you the broken bridge, that's your own fault that you're a fool, that you bought into it. All does not apply, only if it's a loss of money. Yes. But the Tanya says, I'm sure you all know the Tanya, it's not just Tanya or the Rizal, that it's a horrible thing to lie, it's a midaru. But whenever there's here's what Chazal said, lie to him. The guy quits, you know what? Don't quit the musician. An extra $100 I'll give you. You know what? We later learned, even if he paid him, he could take back the back of money. If the guy's smart, I'm not going to just let give you cash. I'll give you cash, and I can take it in turn and get back the cash from you. But you have no right to quit. You took a job knowing that you're a musician, or you're going to be the photographer, and you can't get to the last minute, or any duvaro of it. Like, things that, Then there's another question to place, Kim. I want to quickly say, yeah?
Does it matter if the musicians are working by an hourly rate, or whether it's for the whole job?
It doesn't make a difference, because it doesn't make a difference.
Limitations on how long can we take the music for after the fact?
No, there is no statute of limitations.
During my wedding, the musicians came up to me, the band leader came up to me, during the wedding, 2/3 of the way in, 2 3/4 of the way in, he said, you guys got started late, so I understand, but my extra musicians are here, and they were only contracted for a certain amount, so what do you want to do? Do you want to tell the extra guys, like half the band, to go home? Do you want us to keep playing, or do you want us to stop the music altogether? I was like, just bring them right to track, let's keep going.
What's the problem now?
But was it true?
Yeah, he was
So.
gonna.
No, but I'm saying, you guys started late.
So that's not his fault. You guys started late. That's not his problem. He said, I'm going to work, let's say, from 8 to 11. All right, just say for the sake of argument.
What's freaking late mean? I mean, this is all relative. Even if we started on time, the number of hours still could have gotten to it. And then
Again, let's start from scratch. What was the contract?
The contract was they were going to play for 6 hours.
Okay, and
They
they
started a half hour late tonight, and the party's also going longer than it probably. They said you can go until a certain time, but if you want to go later, you can. So now it looks like we're going to go probably 2 hours over because there's 300 people there and the party's rocking. And so he says you only contracted for this number of hours.
for 6 hours.
For 6 hours, and the late factor is not an issue about. We're going to go an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 over anyway. But he's saying that now we've reached the point where we said we would pay the guys till, and so every half hour after this is an extra fee. So
Yeah, but 1 second, but he was right. Because
he was right, which is why I said write the check. Let's keep it.
Right, because the guy says, I'm going to work 6 hours, and just because the wedding took longer, he's not obligated to work 6 hours.
He started a minimal amount of time late, but the party went a lot longer than it was supposed to.
It doesn't make a difference.
So he had the right to say
He had the right to say that.
Okay.
He has no right to take advantage of you now and say, if you want me to play another 2 hours, instead of whatever,
Triple time.
triple time. That he
Then
can't
you tell him,
do.
yes, I'll pay you triple time, but then when he's done, you only pay him the regular.
You have to pay a little overtime, whatever the going rate.
There was no premium, but it did feel like he was taking advantage of the situation.
But you have to know that there is such a rule, there is such a minhagim too. I was sat in the 30 months this way. There is when things go overtime, there is a how do you say it, a minig. There is a standards that they do charge a lot more. Even are you a musician? No, but there is such a thing. There is such a thing. A musician told me that there is a steady pay, and if you now that it got longer, they don't just ask time and everything. They ask twice as much as some great show.
What if you have, let's say, you have to lie to somebody, come, give me an extra $200, and he says, okay, give me the money now, and they give him $200, and he stays.
You could take the money back.
I'm going to retire, right?
Get the money back.
I say, give me the money back. He says, no, I'm taking the tire. Taking the tire, that's minus $400.
That's
I
a,
asked him for $400.
no, that is a separate issue which has to be discussed. It used to be in Europe, a city had a bezdin, and a bezdin, the union was supported by the city, so that you go to didnt, and didn't cost any more money. That was part of the rabbi, the town, like a judge today. It's part of keeping the. But today there is no bezdin in the city. So any bezdin in the city is a private organization. This is how it's.
I understand.
The RCC is not called a city bezdin.
Of course not. Why is the city? Who appointed them? They appointed themselves. No one appointed them.
They have the rabbis from all the different parts of the city.
So what?
That's,
They don't have rabbis or They only have 3 Litvish rabbis. No chassidim there. They're not. Nothing to do with anyone.
It works that the person who wins the case has the right to go for legal fees.
Right.
Right? So my question is, if you go and take something to the tire then, I mean, otherwise the person knows it's costing more to do the.
That's
the
true.
tire than
That is part of the problem because we don't have a business in the city. There is no business in the city.
We need to start one for LA.
What?
We need to start in LA.
Well, like,
Yeah,
you have to get people to agree, and you have
First, you
to.
have to find people that know Choshen Mishpat now. Not that many of them.
No, but it has to be paid by the city. You know, I mean, that's what was.
The city appoints it, the people decide we will pay the bezdin.
That's in Europe. That's how it was. The big cities had a dayan you had one judge, and this one judge would get 2 Talmidei Chachamim and would sit with him. That was the standard. There wasn't that's how the standard thing was. All the big cities, the small cities would go to the big cities that didn't.
That's why they didn't charge for the
When they didn't charge, then they didn't charge. Then things got people used to start charging. It was too expensive. The small state that but originally every city is obligated to have a bezdin.
But I know for some issues, Rabbanim would charge because they want to weed out who's serious or not.
Well, we do. When I sit in interest, I don't charge much. I just charge because he shouldn't take advantage. Otherwise, he's going to be talking nonstop and repeat the story 10 times. I always tell people the reason why Dayan's allowed to take money because I become a therapist and I have to sit and listen. That is extremely boring. He said the story 5 times and now he has to say it again. And I'm gonna. And he's trying to tell me there's a point that you didn't get yet. And so.
This is what? This is for the actual tire.
At the time when they say the arguments, that's what I would tell people that.
It's a split.
Right, split. Right. I usually tell people it's good to bring a toyin because often the Balladeer is so caught up with his emotions he doesn't say what he needs to say. He says the wrong things and it doesn't. Okay. So then there's another question. I want to tell you another way. I see the place going to talk about it nowadays. What happens? It's a dover of it. But the guy quits right now, I have nothing what he did till now. And let's say I asked the guy to build me, to come here and to build the mechitzas. And he's building the mechitzas and he built half. Half a mechitzas, not a mechitzah. You don't have anything yet. It's not a good notion because we could have finished it later, but something what he did, and if he stopped, I have nothing from it.
The wedding is a perfect example.
Right, wedding is a perfect example.
But there was no loss to quantify. How can you get...
Well, I could tell him I will pay him. The other cases is where his job that he did, I'm trying to understand, the Chazanish brings a story, I don't have the story what happened there. So there was a story that the guy did have the job. By quitting, there's nothing, you can't finish the job. Quitting, that's gone, the whole thing is a waste. Software, who writes software over here? You write software? Who writes software?
I have a development team of 6.
Right. So when you know that you're writing software with someone, all of a sudden it says, stop working for me. All the work there is worthless, right? It's useless. No one can use it. I was making it for this guy's needs and whatever the thing, and all of a sudden he says, you know what, I don't want you. It's a loss. The whole thing is a loss. So in a case where the whole thing is a loss, let's say you guys quit on him, and whatever the reason is, so it's not the pshat. He has not half a software. He has nothing. Such a case, you never have to pay the worker anything. When do we say you have to get paid? When he has some benefit from it. There's mamish a story that way going on. and someone told me in New York, a huge project, and the guy, because of the recession, you know, it was $1 million project, you know, in the software. I was told it's not so much money, $1 million, but it's a big project, and they didn't have enough funding because whatever the business went in 2008, so the guy didn't want to pay him. You know, it was a whole story. But the truth is, if they quit, it was a question who quit. But if they quit the thing, so there's nothing. He doesn't have to pay you. Understand? Because you have nothing from the software, but he didn't have a job.
And what if the software is just bad? Because that happened to me. I hired a team that spent $60,000. They also lied about the hourly rates and the amount that they were paying their subcontractors, etc. Probably about $10,000 worth of work from a third party that I brought in to review the code. I mean, absolutely worthless. Didn't work as it was supposed to. It was really a con job.
Sure, they're stealing.
Obviously, but
I was told, I've sat in a few didnts with this, and I was told that in software it's hard to find someone who really knows what they're doing. Is that true?
it is true. Absolutely. I actually brought this person on board because they suggested that they had more experience than they had, and that their experience was actually of greater asset and value than it was. And it was completely mismanaged, which is why it was so bad. The subcontractors were actually decent. It was the general contractor that didn't know what he was doing.
So he didn't know what he was doing, so you could take him to Torah if he's a Jewish person and get the money back. Because if a guy build a room, this is important. If a guy builds, I once sat in the Torah where a guy built, and he didn't build it the way I wanted, he didn't want to pay. This is what I mean. He built it. You hold that the quality is not the same quality, so let's get the experts to see how much the difference is. But software, if it's not good, it's not good, right? And it's like you put plumbing into the house and it doesn't work.
It's like a bad foundation, which is a better.
Right, but by software, I was told if it's not good, you just can't use it.
It's right.
What's the difference between the building that didn't turn out the way the person wanted it to, and the person that had the simcha where the food wasn't as good as they wanted it to?
But they enjoyed the food.
According to
They ate. I mean, they ate the food. The food was eaten, so he got to pay. He doesn't have to pay the high price, but the food was eaten. If I build the software, I was told I don't know about computers. You know about a computer, but if you build software and it's not good, it's not usable. Finished. You just can't use it.
Eating half the plate when you decide you've had enough, just returning the plate, say it's no good.
Wait, no good. In Yiddish there's a saying, "Tam v'reich ein l'sakeach." You know, it's food. It's you decided not to eat it. That's your choice. You bought it.
So the restaurant can say, "I'm sorry."
Of course. Yeah, the restaurant, if they don't want to be, they want to be tough, not nice. They could say, "I'm sorry." You know, they usually don't do that, but it's not good for business. But they could say. But we're talking about something that's stuck and not good. We see that is a question not good, and how do you say this in English? It's subjective. You say it's not tasty. He said it is tasty. Certain things that everyone agree. If it's
an example of a faulty foundation, I think is good, because if you build on a bad foundation, which would require them to take down the whole building and start from scratch again, then that's the same thing. You didn't give me anything.
Right.
You gave me half the building.
Nothing.
I got to take it all down now.
Exactly.
And start again.
Exactly.
Well, like, I guess I was thinking that in the case of you paid an airline, you gave him a ticket to go to New York, and he stops in Kansas City. Okay, and does that mean Kansas?
You have nothing from it. The Shulchan Aruch talks about it later. This is a good mashal. Let's say you hire a guy. You take a taxi. This happens in Eretz Yisrael. You tell the guy a taxi, and the guy had no intention to take you so far. Middle of the way, he says, "I can't go anymore." It used to be 30 years ago now.
Nesher did that to me with my suitcases and everything.
Yeah, they say the first day, "Yeah, come, we'll take you." In the middle of the way, they say, "Yeah, go." They start Hebrew. Yeah, now you get yourself a different cab. So in Halacha,
Offer more and then not pay.
and just tell them I paid the regular price. Tell them, look, I'm going to pay extra $200. Take me to the original, and then tell them I'll go fly a kite.
Exactly.
What did you say? Yes. And it's unfortunately But I watched that they take advantage of people like this. They know you're traveling and you're not going to put up a fight, and so that's so because my children who went to a seminary, my daughters, and I had some tough daughters. You always told them, ask the guy how much and how much, because if you speak English, it becomes double the price. So you have to ask them before, what's the price? Because usually you get there, you're going to put up a fight, and okay. Anyway, so the Mechaber says, Misharsis oy evet shel balabais is also called mikaduveruve. The bais are yuchalasis. Let's say, it used to be this, but people who don't know how to run a household, and they have a meshudis to run the household, and she quits. That's called the duveruve. Now there's an evet shaloi, and he can do. So it has to be. It's very hard for me to have a clear. And I see the Choshen is not so clear. They used to have someone run the house for them, and the guy who's running the house for them quit, and now the rich owners, don't know how to run the house. There are many wealthy people. I have my children told me. One of my daughters has a friend. She grew up in a wealthy home. When she got married, she did not even know how to put on an oven. Yeah, depends on how she did nothing.
Ovens these days, I tell you that.
She never did anything, which is a disaster. Turns out to be. But the point is that if a person does not know to run the whole house, it's called a dover. You're not allowed to quit. You're saying. Unless he's an oinus. That means, let's say the musician is an oinus, he could quit. Nothing you could do. Let's say the musician gets a phone call that his son fell. Middle of the wedding. He's got to rush to the hospital. His wife went into labor. Now, his wife into labor is a very good question. There are many poskim hold that if you knew that your wife could give birth any day, and you took the job, you can't pull out the card you're anonymous. You should have told the guy, be aware, my wife is pregnant, and I'm going to go with her to the hospital if she has to give birth. You understand? An oinus has to be literally, someone fell, someone broke a hand, something that was totally not the routine thing.
They say the same thing about drunk driving. I mean, a guy could find that it's not my fault, I was drunk. So you just back up as far as you can, saying zero cries, not to put yourself in a circumstance you could be drunk and end up in your car. So if you just back up as far as you can to then making that.
I don't have to back up. The bottom line is you didn't tell the guy. You didn't tell the guy that I'm a musician, but you know what? My wife is due any hour that day, and I might not show up. So you can't pull the card. My wife is in labor now, and he has a family member who's extremely sick, dying, and the death could be any day. And they say, well, I'm going to come play at the wedding, and then all of a sudden he can't show up. That you can't pull that card over. Do you understand? The oinus. Because you should know, if you didn't tell him, you have to come do the job. The only question is, an oval is not allowed to work. That's a different story. That's Isser, but it wouldn't be the Isser. So don't go. You can't go watch.
You can't work as a musician?
An oval in the shiva can't work.
Well, these cases are like this.
Because of working, not because
Does that mean that they're not responsible?
They're not responsible to do it
If
over.
I hit someone's car.
No. I am working for you. I'm a musician. And I got a phone call. This guy gets a phone call that something is needed at home. His child fell and the wife ran to the emergency room. So I got to join her in the emergency room, okay? So that is unexpected. So that is part of the contract we made together. I will not quit on you, but if it's annoyance, it's understood I'll quit on you. But if you are just one of those people who, and you have a small headache, you quit, you can't, that's not expected.
If you're going to suffer a loss, you have to, can you go back and look at 3 days in the shiva?
Well, not a loss. It has to be, it doesn't have what to eat. Not a loss. The loss is not an excuse. 3 days.
Really, you're going to lose so much that you're not going to be able to recover.
No, you can lose your panosa. No, not working, when you don't work, you don't make money. That's a rule.
I heard you can go to court if you're middle of shiva sometimes.
It all depends. Not so simple.
Minimum, what's the minimum?
You might lose your job.
So 3 days is enough or no days?
No. The first 3 days it's very chomer. But if you might lose your job, your profession, then you can work. But it has to be Not just the.
The first day you could work, because it was.
Well, it's first day, not other days. You have to look it up. Shechah makes the difference the first day. There is no heter to work in the shiva. I've heard this already so often, unless your parnas is on the line. You know what I mean?
Again, this whole Inus case, the music is kind of hard to define what the loss is, but at the end of the day, if I hired somebody to take in my flax, or whatever, the stuff that's hanging out there that is flax, right? And he doesn't show up because his kid fell down. I understand that his kid fell down, but now he was causing me a loss of $10,000. So he's not on the hook for that?
No, because when you made a contract with you understood that if his anointis is not showing up. That's self-understood. Now, not if his son scratched his nose. You know, anointis, which is accepted that a normal person would run to the hospital. You know what I'm saying? That you both went into the contract knowing this ahead of time. So you don't expect a musician playing music when his child fell and is in an emergency room.
So, all right, if I'm driving down the street and a guy behind me has a heart attack, he passes out, and his car hits mine, causing me a big damage. He had a total illness that he didn't have control over. Now, I know when I'm driving
That has
down
nothing
the
to
road,
do with that has nothing to do with this. That's a mazik. We're not talking about mazik over here. We're talking about your obligation to work with someone. A mazik is a philaboinus, and feeling you're sleeping. That's called a mazik. That's a whole separate mechlikas. It happens to mechlikas that I tell you.
But you're not showing up.
Yeah, but this is a contract that I'll be working for you. Now, I knowing that if I don't play music, it's going to be a disaster. So no matter what, I have to come. But if everyone knows that if the guys are known, you knew clearly that if something happens to him, he's not going to show up. You understood that also from the beginning.
So how do you estimate it?
But music.
Child falls and breaks their arm, but the one kid, the wife can take him to the hospital.
It's very, very difficult. It's very, very, it's true, and it's very difficult. It has to be something that is accepted by people. You break an arm, I watch people, the one parent goes to the emergency room, that's all. But it's something that's serious, both are going to be in the emergency room. I mean, you're raising children, you know that. If it's just a broken arm, okay, mom is taking you to the doctor, they'll check it out, take an x-ray. But if the child is unconscious, both parents will be sitting with them next to their bed. So it all depends. It's true, all depends what is how it goes. Okay. He says, he got sick, or Ishtoi Munov, they got sick, or Shishuma Shemes Loimes. He heard that one of this, one of the 7 relatives passed away. He has to say Shiva. They don't have to pay him only what he did. But only what he did has a value. If, like I said, he did a half a job, you can't do anything with it. But Yudam ala yoinoi. If there's a noiness, it's Yudam ala yoinoi. Remember what Yudam ala means? Yudam ala yoinoi means that you can't, if you tell him, the guy, guy would run home to the hospital and see the child. A guy says, do me a favor, finish the music, I'm going to give you $1,000. Everything in America has a price. It's not $1,000, $5,000. He'll stay. All of a sudden tell his wife, listen, I'm making extra $5,000, be in the hospital alone. So then, I'm saying that's if it's an oinus, he would have to pay him. You understand? He was allowed to go home. This guy, his wife or the child was in an accident, he was allowed to go home. The guy says, don't go home, I'll accept to pay money. He has to pay him the extra money because he was not allowed to lie to him. Because he was allowed to go off the hook because an oinus happened. You follow the sequence?
Yeah.
You follow? That means he was allowed to go home because of the tragedy happened. But if you offer him more money just to stay, you got to pay him. That's what he's saying.
You don't take the argument that I'm afraid that it wasn't a big enough oinus that he was leave.
You know what we say, money doesn't talk, it screams. You know what I mean? Just the right price.
But I understand, but oinus, you would think, obviously it's not, obviously it's not enough of an oinus.
But you see, it's something that normally people would do, but for big money.
But even, from what I understand, even the price itself, it doesn't, I remember hearing a case of Boshas, and she claimed whatever it was, embarrassment, and the court awarded her, and the guy thinking, so what he did was he created oil.
It's a Mishnah, yeah.
It's a Mishnah. So, it shows how little, so to speak.
But no, over there is different. Over there, the Mishnah says that the Mishnah, he's asking, the Mishnah says that a person went and took a man took a lady's tichel off. So the kiva made him pay boishes. So then this man was standing next to her and waited, and he dropped a kettle of oil. She quickly took her tichel off and took the oil and smeared it on her head. So he said to Reb Kiva, I heard I should pay her. She took a tichel off in the middle of the street. Says, if she wants to embarrass herself, she could do it to herself. But you embarrass her, you have no right to embarrass her. That's a whole different, it's a whole different scenario. Right. Okay.
Because someone's allowed to leave for an illness, and you tell them you're gonna pay them more, and then they don't leave, you still have to pay it.
You have to pay it.
They're allowed to leave.
Because they were allowed to leave.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Right. That's the halacha, because they had a right to leave, and then if you're able to get them an offer.
If you have so much wet flax that you're worried about such a loss, you should have extra guys on hand during that time, just in case somebody decides to.
Right, that's true. That is true. That if you do have, every school has a substitute. And a guy who told me that he used to work he used to work in a factory where he works on the belt. So they had always a substitute, because if one guy doesn't do his job, then the whole belt stops. But the guy, there's not everything you need. You guys run a business. Not always you have an extra guy, because what's the chances? What's the chances? Doesn't mean that it can't happen. Okay. Then he says, the Rambam says, "Mi ein sur sham koz rab mashuv Yuda matu yom khuse balabais kimel ach shuv reonis husan v'chazi usi ach kimel ach sur sham kel skuram in a malakel claim." Let me tell you a moire digeramo, a long machloikis about this Rambam. What happens? He was working by the time. It was a dover. He left. True, he left, and he had a right to leave his oinus. And he came back. And I didn't tell him that I'm taking off from his check pay for the week that he didn't work. I just took him back regularly. The Rambam says you took him back regularly. You didn't tell him. Then we assume that you're going to pay him for the sick days. Now today it's not negayah, because today we have whole rules on how many 6 days you could take. You're working for a job, a company, they don't allow you only a certain amount of 6 days, even though you're really sick for longer. But I'm saying in those days, if I took you back and I didn't tell you, the Ramah's opinion is, I meant to say to pay all the 6 days. Not everyone agrees to the Ramah. Many, the Shach, many disagree with the Ramah. He says, Ach kemanach tzuch l'shalom kol schulam. Ve'eni manakele claim. Ava b'lavucha, manakele kiyuma v'cholyo on se'api shel ba poil. It means even though they paid them for not working, you don't get paid. In America, people got used to it, that for not working, you get paid. I remember once someone asking me that, today they changed the rules, but I remember this in a cheder, in a school, guy took off, and the school took off a day, and he was so angry. He says, the school said, sick days, you were not sick. People have this mentality that you should get paid even though you don't work. If a school is allowed to make with you a deal that if you don't work, you don't get paid. There's nothing wrong. Just we happen to be, lucky that we live in America that we could afford the 6 days. No. You have to give 6 days for your workers?
You don't have to, it's 6.
I was told you have to. Someone told me you have to. You don't have to give 6 days?
In America, you don't have to give anything.
Oh, that's great.
You can make them work on holidays too. You have to pay double time if you make them work on holidays. According to the law, lunch every year.
Get breaks, 2 15-minute breaks.
They have to get one.
I mean, you can work.
No, you force someone to come and work on public holidays. You have to pay them double time for it.
In Europe, you have to give.
Yeah.
I was once standing in a semifinal, and the manager tells the thing, you have to take off time. And she didn't want. And he says, no, you got to do. And I ask him, why? Why did you tell her she has to take off time? He says, because we were sued where a lady didn't want to take a break, and we told her she should take a break, and then she didn't, and then she came back and sued, and boy, did it cost them money. This is a crazy America. This is mid Saddam.
It costs even more because it becomes time and a half.
10.5 plus a knas.
Yeah.
I asked the lawyer, they're not, it's a knas. What do you say?
Craig Eckman can tell you exactly how much.
That's a Saddam halacha. You understand? That's called mid Saddam. You understand why? The guy.
What happens is the onus of proof is on the employer.
Right.
So if you haven't kept specific records that the person took their breaks.
No, he said to me, no, even if the person didn't want to, the person said, I don't like to have breaks. And they were sued for that.
Now in California, it looks like the law has changed, and where that as an employer, you only have to make it available. But if they don't take it,
It's only
it's
for
on
breaks
them.
though, not for lunch. Only for the breaks for lunch and you gotta pay them for the lunch too.
Yeah.
Shame. That's all these laws. Is if you realize this is mid Saddam. You know what Saddam means, because it's not your shit. I have a right to hire anyone. You don't like it, don't come work for me.
That applies to everything. The whole, minimum wage, you say.
Right? So, right. And having rent control is also mid Saddam. There's no. It's my house. I'm allowed to charge whatever I want. You want to live in my house? $1 million. You don't. And it's, okay. If he did pay him, yesh omren, the eine tzurach lachzir, he doesn't have to give back the money. If you did pay him, and you didn't make up clearly what the payment was, you did pay him. So and the guy got sick. That means I paid him ahead of time. Paid the malamed, you're going to work, so he gave ahead of time. Then he got sick. Now I don't want to pay. I want he should give him back the 6 days. 6 sick days. There's an opinion since you paid him ahead of time, he could keep the money for the sick days. A big chiddush. That means if I pay him at the end, I could tell you, you were 3 days you were sick. I'm not paying him for those 3 days. But if in the beginning it was this way, I paid him ahead of time for the whole month. And then end of the month, I say, give me back 3 days because 3 days you were sick. I can't take it back. Why? Not everyone agrees, but the remove goes with the Rishonim because we say you only paid him ahead of time knowing that people get sick. And it's possible he's not going to show up. That you didn't care. Why did you give him the whole money? Why should a person give the whole money ahead of time? Okay, I have to stop over here. I have to run to away.